Okay, I will call this meeting to order, and we'll do the flag salute like we did before during the regular meeting, if that's okay with Mr. Kessler.
Do what?
That flag salute at the regular meeting.
That's fine.
Okay, roll call.
Thank you. All right, Councilman Arth.
Here.
Councilwoman Lucchese.
Here.
Here.
Councilmember Geisler, Vice Mayor Deutsch.
Here.
And Mayor Bryan is excused absence due to COVID.
So with that in mind, there is no public comment because at this point we don't have any public comments. So what I'll do is I'll enter us into closed session at this point.
Yeah, there is no public. D,
Yeah,
Tucky, anybody
Not
raise hand, no raise hand. I think we're good. Okay, so I'm going to kick everybody out of the Zoom room. I'm going to put you back in the waiting room, but then I'll re-enter everybody. So hold on one second.
Okay, we'll start off then with
If you keep folks, if you guys are all okay with a short-ish presentation.
5 minutes. Great, okay, now we're.
Yeah.
Okay, Adam. So I'd like to introduce Adam Heilman, who's on the Office of Emergency Services with the county. And he's been working with DPAC, so I invited him here tonight for a very important presentation. It's on a new system that is going to be part of our evacuation process going forward. So it's part of what we have with Code Red already, and he'll explain the rest of it and how it all fits together to make this a safer community. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Again, my name's Adam Heilman. I am with Siskiyou County Office of Emergency Services. And my background, just to start a little bit, I have been with the Dunsmuir Fire Department here since 1987. So that's coming up on 33 years. I also spent 12 years working as a 911 dispatcher for the city of Mount Shasta. And now I am working for the County Office of Emergency Services. One of the things that has been a long struggle is the coordination of evacuations. And the example that I give you, the way it's typically done now, is that when a fire occurs and the fire is moving towards a populated area that needs to be evacuated, the incident commander would get a map out, throw it on his hood, and kind of figure out where the area is that he wants people out of. So then he communicates that verbally to his dispatch over the radio, which is fire dispatch. Fire dispatch takes what they receive of that information and calls law enforcement dispatch. Law enforcement dispatch then relays that information out to their units in the field and then create a code red drawing that area manually within code red. The result is that you end up with multiple versions of what the actual area being evacuated is. And it can be slightly different, it can be greatly different. And it just, you come up with, just in that scenario I gave, there could be up to 7 different versions of what the area is that's under evacuation. So in 2020, a company called Zonehaven was working on a system for evacuations, and the CZU complex of lightning fires happened down in Santa Cruz. And Zonehaven went to the Santa Cruz CAL FIRE unit and said, hey, we've got this tool we've been working on. Let's have you take a look at it and throw it at you and see how it does. And they were pretty blown away with it. And Zonehaven has kind of taken off from there and grown and grown and grown, where now I believe about 30% of the counties are now using it. And several other counties are creating their own similar systems. So what is Zonehaven? What Zonehaven is it is a system where zones are predetermined based on a multitude of factors, such as traffic flow, egress, ingress, just a whole multitude of things. And originally we had zones that were produced by Zonehaven's algorithm. And then we had several different meetings throughout the county with every facet of public service. We had fire, obviously, we had law enforcement, we had road departments. We had several different levels because each one of them has a unique need when evacuations happen. So the area that a fire service may need a zone shape to be maybe slightly different than Sergeant Ortiz needs, because his responsibility is A, get the people out, and then B, secure that area. So by adjusting a zone slightly, he may be able to secure an area with one deputy that if the zone were, say, 100 yards different and 3 more intersections open up, now he needs 4 people to do it. So a great deal of time was spent with a lot of different folks kind of coming up with the zones. So on the screen, what you have here is kind of the basic area of Dunsmuir. And this site is aware.zonehaven.com. And what our thing with this being Wildfire Safety Awareness Week is we need everybody to know their zone.
Could you say that again?
Know your zone at
Aware.
aware.zonehaven.com.
Thank you.
So let's do an example. Dave, we'll use you because I know your name and I know you. Blake, Dave, what's your address?
4829 Siskiyou Avenue.
Can you type that up in the address box for me, Blake?
Sure thing,
And
Adam.
if you go into aware.zonehaven.com, type your address in and then click on it down below there where it lights up. It is going to show you on the map where you are. It's going to show you, Dave, that your zone is zone 6535. That's your zone. So when I come up to you in a week and say, Dave, what's your zone? You're going to tell me 6535.
Damn right I will.
Okay? And it's not that we're going to put the code reds out and only have the zones. We're still going to describe the areas, but this gives you a solid thing. If you hear 6535, it's time to go, you're going to know I'm 6535, I got to go. So that's the idea. The other thing that's cool with this is the other side of this that public safety is using. We're able to go in and change the status of the zone if it's under an evacuation order or warning, and the color of that zone will change on the aware side to red if it's an order, yellow if it is a warning. And the cool thing is that as soon as it gets changed on the evac side, it's going to show up on the aware side. And it's the same thing that the sheriff's office is going to look at as far as what the area being evacuated in. It's the same thing fire's going to look at. They're going to refer to it as a zone. So now when that incident commander needs that area evacuated, he calls his dispatch, says, I need 6535 evacuated. Not a problem. Boom. Law dispatch call or fire dispatch calls law dispatch and says, hey, we need 6535 evacuated. Great. We know exactly what that is. Boom. It's done. Dispatch will call the units in the field and, tell Sergeant Ortiz, hey, we need 6535 evacuated. He's going to be able to look either on his phone device or if he prints out one of the booklets and see exactly where 6535 is. He also would have the ability to bring on the evac side, he can bring up a map of that zone, or if there's multiple zones, and actually text them to other units in the field, whether they're within his own agency or if units are brought up from outside the area, he'll have the ability to spread those maps out very quickly. So that's kind of the other things that Zonehaven shows when they open up. Down here, it talks about temporary evacuation points. And right now, obviously, there aren't any because we're not doing any evacuations. But what will happen is eventually all of the centers that will be used for evacuations, when it's determined that that a place is being used for it, Those will be pre-populated in the background and be switched on, and then the public will be able to see where they need to go to for an evacuation center. How does this affect Code Red? It really doesn't change for the public the importance and the significance of Code Red. Code Red is still what we're going to be reaching out to the public with. Where this helps is that now, in the past, dispatch had to go in and physically draw that zone or that area that was being described. And that takes a bit of time. And it's challenging, particularly because what happens when something's going on, what's happening with that dispatch center? They're getting pounded with 911 calls. So now you are expecting your dispatcher or dispatchers to try to go into a program, draw a shape, and type up a message to put out. The beauty with Zone Haven, one of the things we're pushing is the ability for, let's say, that happens and the two dispatchers on an SO are just getting pounded with 911s. They would be able to make one quick call, say, over to YPD and say, hey, can you put out an evacuation order for zone 6535 in Dunsmere? And the YPD dispatchers who have little to no knowledge of the geography of Dunsmere, they can punch in 6535, this is the area that's being evacuated, and go. So that's going to help speed up the ability to get the code reds out.
Great. Got to run, I think, but I do want to point out one thing. That is that we're going to try and get a mailing out. DPAC wants to get a mailing out that'll go out to everybody. That'll give them all the zone information so everyone will have it. We'll talk about that a little later. But real quick, any questions or comments for Adam? Yes, go ahead.
I can't think enough.
Just what are you asking of the city?
What I am asking of the city is to get everyone to know their zone. Go into aware.zonehaven.com and figure out what your zone is. If you are technically challenged, don't have internet or whatever, the other options are you can call 211 and they will assist you, and you can give them your address and they should be able to help you know what your zone is. The main thing is that we want the word out on this.
And the county at the OES level, they've adopted this? They're
Yes.
thinking of it?
No, it is live and ready today.
Sorry.
And we actually started utilizing it on the back end in the County Emergency Operations Center last summer during all the fires we had. And very quickly, once we got the incident management team, so like on the Antelope fire where it was blowing up and heading towards Doris, once we had the incident management teams dialed in and they were able to call us and give us zone numbers of what they wanted, it was super quick.
Beautiful.
So-
The whole idea from DPAC is they wanted to kick off this process of letting everyone know and bring it to the council. And then
Know your zone.
Continue on.
That's the message.
Thank you, Adam.
So Brian, when I see you next time, you're gonna tell me what your zone is,
Yes, sir.
okay?
I'll know my
Bruce,
zone.
your zone, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it's 6535, because,
No, I'm on.
Oh, did you move?
That's happening now.
oh, okay, so I'm wrong. Okay,
I
so,
will say thank you for your service, for all that you've done
I
in the
agree.
city and what you're doing now and continuing.
I appreciate that.
I commend you, and I'm not 6535, maybe I can.
All right.
How many years on the fire department?
You said 17, 33?
No, I think it's 33, it was 87,
Let's
so,
give it up for 33 years of service.
well, thank you. If anybody has any other questions, comments, or anything on this, feel free to give me a call. You can go on the emergency services website and I'm on there. My desk number's on there. Give me a call.
You're saying in town, know your zone.
Know your zone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Adam.
All right, thank you.
Okay, with that in mind, then we move on to what I was starting to talk about before. It's time for now the Union Pacific Railroad Cleanup Project, a major deal, and a lot of folks here, so let's get rolling. Blake, you want to introduce and get us started there?
I don't know, Tara's already getting up there, so she's ready to go.
Go ahead.
With the name.
Yeah, it starts with you.
So, right, this stems from last meeting that we had where it was announced about the initial phase of this project and everything. We've had initial discussions with Lauren. So Lauren Mancuso is right here. She's with UP. Those initial discussions happened, and then we announced it last council meeting, and then this is stemming from that. They are here to discuss the project in its entirety. We definitely are appreciative of the communication so far. And I think at that, we can take it away. If Lauren, you wanted, or if Tara wants to start first.
And just to be clear, you're welcome, and we're looking forward to developing our relationship a little deeper, so have at it.
That's great news. Good evening, everyone. As he said, I'm Tara Fitzgerald. I'm an on-scene coordinator with the US EPA, and we're here
Could you do your
tonight.
name again?
Tara Fitzgerald?
Tara
Yes.
Fitzgerald.
And, we're here tonight to present on what the plans are for the UP site for the next year or two. And really why I hopped up first was because I just wanted to say, introduce myself. I'll be around quite a bit this summer while the work's ongoing. And to point out that I'm here with the state water board, with California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and with UP, and we are here in what we call a unified command completing this project. So unified is kind of what it sounds like. We make decisions as a group collaboratively and come to a unanimous decision. So just wanted to kind of come up and let you know who's all working behind the scenes and soon on scene to complete this work. And with that, I will turn it over to Lauren to provide a overview of where we are and where we're going.
Thank you.
Can you all hear me? This is probably adjusted for my height, not Tara's. All right, so I'm Lauren Mancuso with Union Pacific Railroad. I have a background in geology. I was the field geologist out here in the yard, over a decade ago. I have some of my colleagues here, some of my mentors from back in that time. A lot of the experts behind UP are supporting us. I'm just going to give kind of a brief overview of the history of the rail yard. I'm sure there's probably people here who know more about the history of Dunsmuir than what we're going to present. This is just a quick overview as it relates to what we're dealing with in the yard now. We're going to talk about some of the response actions from last year and through the next couple years, what we're planning on doing. So if you would like to hit the first slide. So, as many of you know, this is a railroad town. 1890 is when Southern Pacific first built the main part of the yard. It originally included this 2 million gallon Bunker C tank right here. I don't know if you have a mouse that you can point to that. That's a pretty massive tank. You can see it there. The town is across the river, or the tracks from that. It was replaced in 1955, roughly, by a diesel tank. And the fueling activities, were from, the start of the railroad through early 2000s. Bunker C fuel is what we're dealing with mostly in the yard right now. And for those of you who don't know, it looks very similar to molasses in cold weather. It is sticky, it's black. If it gets on your clothes, it's going to stain your clothes. It's very heavy hydrocarbon. So here on the right in the picture, you can see that's the old roundhouse and the turntable, which is still there. We might be able to find, I think this building probably wasn't in that photo, but it was up there to the left somewhere where we are. So this tank that we're looking at here was off to the right in that photo. And it was built, the outside of it was steel, but the bottom was likely something, maybe redwood, something that we wouldn't normally use as a tank these days. So over time, that Bunker C fuel, even though it was thick like molasses, it seeped into the ground. There were spills, there were releases. So that this part of the yard, it was seeping in here. The river flows right along this way. And, the water underground carried a lot of that, molasses type thick material down through the yard. And so now we have, this part of the ground is contaminated. There have been, several attempts that the railroad made to stop, this molasses thick Bunker C from going into the river. You can see even in this earlier photo, this wall here, all those trains
Yeah, what about those kids?
They don't even stop for you. Yeah.
Can I keep going or should
We're
I?
used to this.
Okay, you're used to this, you're used to
Yeah.
this.
Yeah,
So there was a-
Scheduled one to come through during the council meeting.
I definitely have nothing to do with that. But there was a small, in the 1920s, there was a very small, maybe a 4 or 5 foot wall that they actually put in the river to stop some of the, the oil from coming through. So, and even at that time, in 1920, to build an environmental, wall, that was a big deal. And over time, they just added to it. And so they thought, okay, well, then they'll add a skimmer system. So they built the wall up a little higher and they put in skimmers. And then through, the 50s, they built the wall a little higher. And then the 70s, they added a different skimmer system where they would actually pump groundwater out along the top side of the wall to try to pull some of that oil up with it. And then most notably, I wish I included a picture of this, in the 90s, Southern Pacific excavated a large part of that north section of the yard. So from here, all the way down, they excavated a massive trench that would have been, as far as this room, down to 12 feet, 15 feet, removed all of the material and then put in these collection wells, these vertical collection wells with screens in them so that they could pull water and product into them and then pump it to the treatment system, which you can see in the yard now, that large tank that's in the center of the yard across from Amtrak. So they put in a huge system to address this problem, and that did not work, as you know, and we still have a problem in the river today. And so that leads us to, we can go to the next slide here, that leads us to what we're doing about it now.
There we go.
So we did, Union Pacific received an order from the EPA to immediately address the contamination going into the river. And, if we could snap our fingers and make it happen right now, we would. But as you can see, this is a complicated problem that's had a lot of attempts. This time we're going to get it right. On the far left, you can see some of this was more of a temporary fix while we tried to resolve, the main problem. This is installation of some barriers inside the river. So we went in, cleared out a lot of the rock at the base of that wall where we could see that oil was seeping in, placed in these types of mattresses to grab onto the oil but let water flow through. And then we put heavy rocks on top of it. And that, that is a Band-Aid fix for the moment while we work through all of the other data that we're collecting to have an actual fix.
Question, one of the things I think is pretty obvious, but in detail, what is the actual harm of this material? I understand it's dangerous, but what is the danger involved with it?
So it is impacting a waterway. We have biologists that can talk about that in terms of, I don't think I'm the best person to answer the actual harm. Some would argue that there is not a significant harm, but it is impacting a waterway. Can I draw upon? Come on.
Sorry, Jeff. Yeah.
So this is Jeff Gentry. He is a long timer on this project, and he is some of the expertise behind UP's work.
Yeah, I think for people that see this happening, they want to know, what is it doing to the water? Why should I care? So if you
It is very insoluble. It doesn't release dissolve phase, into the river much because it's so old age hydrocarbons. Its primary nuisance is its physical impact. It's in the areas where the river's there's probably, not a lot of frogs liking it and things like that. So we have like some limited areas that go into the river, maybe 5 feet or so, which went under the wall. I mean, by the regulations, any, sheen on a waterway is a violation of the Clean Water Act. And that's kind of what we're being enforced on, but there's not a widespread risk. That the CDFW did take some fish samples, I think, and showed that we didn't have some accumulation in any of that. So it's really a localized hydrocarbon impact of a very sticky molasses sticking to the river bottom.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was a good question. So going back to what we've, our response actions, there was along the north side of the yard, there was a large berm that was maybe part of a flood control at some point. There was dried deposits of this material in the berm. And we removed those this last year. We dug back quite a bit of soil and dirt and this material, and it has now been replanted into a more of a restored natural riverbank. And as you can see that here on the right. And later on, I'll show you some pictures of what it looks like now, but it is filling in nice and green. These are willow saplings at the base there. And we can go to the next slide. So this is looking at what's happening for this summer and next summer. The green, just so you know, where we were just looking at pictures of was right up here. This is where we dug last year and restored. The green area is what we're looking at over the next 2 years. We're going to start on the left side this summer. We're going to excavate.
Where's the Amtrak
The
station?
Amtrak station is probably right.
Okay, thank you.
So there's the wastewater treatment plant with a turntable and the large treatment plant
Thank
you
you.
can see from up here. So we're going to start on the left side of the yard when you're looking out at it, and we are going to excavate down, remove all of the material that appears to be at risk of going to the river. When we backfill, we're going to we're not going to fully backfill it to where it is now. We're going to create a more natural setting, so it will have an expanded area there, which will help with flood control, because there will be more space for the water to go when you do get the storms and whatnot. As we move down through the yard, so right about here, we're hoping to get kind of to this area, actually to this area this year. This section up to the north will be deeper all the way down to bedrock, hopefully. Excuse me, we're going to hopefully down to the bottom of the trench that was installed previously. And then in this area, we're going to lower it by about 8 feet this year so that we can prepare to dig it all the way out to bedrock next summer. So that's 20 some feet. There's going to be a lot of water coming in from the ground. We're going to have to control that, and it's going to be challenging for us. But we have a team of people working on this right now to model it, to make sure that it's actually doable. And moving down the river here, this will be 2023 where the arrow is now. We're going to remove that wall. It's a pretty sizable wall along the river's edge there. There's a wooden wall where the arrow is now. That's going to come out as well. As you know, this is the building that the city operates out of, right under here in the green area. That, we are investigating around it right now. The city has been asked to, their lease has been terminated and they've been asked to move. We're working on keeping some of the larger equipment there for the time being while we investigate around the building. But it's very possible that building will need to be taken down so that we can address whatever is beneath it if we find something. But we are working with the city on that, and it's been very, very helpful process.
And the city appreciates it.
Give you all the time we can get. And so that is part of the investigation this summer as well. And we are learning, as we learn these things, we are sharing it with our city contacts.
So to be clear, the idea that we have to be out of that building in the next 30 days, or actually less than that, that's no longer the operative plan.
So we're trying to get as much time as possible. Per the lease agreement, it was 35 days, but as I explained earlier, we have some things that we can look at, and the agencies are on board with not immediately making that building, we're not tearing it down immediately. So, and we will be in direct communications. As soon as we know, you will know. And so that is essentially this, and then we'll know what we're going to do there in the future after we do that investigation. So that's for the riverfront. That is for, the current EPA order. Everything that's kind of on this side, the rail yard side, so this whole line here and down, we know that there is mass under the ground in this area. We know that there is that petroleum, that bunker C is there. It's not at risk immediately of going into the river, and that's why it's not a part of this order, but we are working with the water board, and we have been for several years, on what to do about that upland, the up gradient side of that. We're planning on putting in some material that will grab the oil and let water pass through on the up gradient side of that trench. And we'll be developing those plans, as we go through this summer, essentially.
Questions from the council?
No,
When did the EPA inform you?
So what was the date of the order? Was that
So then
August?
June of 2021
June of 2021?
But so what we did last year that Lauren went over was we did the in-river mattresses and some of the excavation to see if that would alleviate the issue of the oil going into the river while UP was working with the water board. We're still seeing some sheeting going into the river, and so we're moving forward with additional actions under the order.
I'm mostly concerned about local impacts, so I want to wait for Fish and Game and the water board.
Okay, thank you. So, any other questions for her?
Yeah,
Next slide.
as the project is going on, do you happen to have any information on like how you'll be communicating, excuse me, communicating the work as you're doing it? Because we are a tourist town. And so I think it's advantageous for us to make sure that as these things are going on, you know, again, local impacts, if people hear that this project is going on and don't understand, you know, we don't want that to have any economic, you know, consequences on our side. So what is the communication plan moving forward as you continue through the next 2 years?
So as, I think after this week, actually, this is a good time.
Yeah,
What,
you're
would
a-
you like
you're a
to
team, so whenever you
introduce
need to pull
yourself?
somebody in, go ahead.
Come on up.
This is a presentation, not public comment, so you work the team as you need to.
Okay, yeah, my name's Eric Laughlin. I'm a public information officer with State Fish and Wildlife. And so I'm going to be the public information officer for the response. And we have a website actually already up online right now. And so our plan is to post on that if we have a significant operational update. We also have social media. It's at Cal Spill Watch is California Fish and Wildlife's social media, and we've been posting photos on that. And we also, my counterpart, Anna, is the liaison officer, so she's gonna keep the stakeholders updated. So we have a pretty comprehensive communication plan to not only keep the residents, the media, but also the local government and tribal stakeholders. So the website, though, is the best place to go. We can provide you that information.
I do have a suggestion. I think it would be important to maybe do something similar to what we do with like our water department funding. We put up these larger boards, and I mean, they're very inexpensive to put up. But again, you know, not everybody here is going to be aware of that. And we do have a significant number of businesses that sit on Sacramento Avenue directly across from where all the work is going. So I think it may be good to maybe put something small up like that and just say this is a collaborative project between Union Pacific and CDFW. I mean, and just keep that up for the next 2 years, like we do our water projects. It might be a little bit more helpful for people who, one, who are not technology savvy,
Yeah.
or two, just again, not aware of it or know where to go. Because again, thinking of someone who may not be from here, who may be seeing that work go on, they don't intrinsically think of going to your website to do that.
So when you say a
I would also add on to
board,
what she's saying, that you'd also there want to make it clear that this doesn't pose a health threat, so that people realize this isn't because there's something dangerous that could affect them, so.
when you say a board, you mean like a posting on a light post type?
It's like literally a plywood board. It's like we can show some examples that we're required to put up for our USDA projects, but it's just it's like a small billboard that's temporarily up. It's, yeah, they're not very large, but
I mean, like feet by feet, though.
yeah, it's they're really helpful in terms of communicating what's going on with our water projects that we have ongoing. And we have to do them per grant regulations for those. So I
Exactly.
think it'd be easy to share the dimensions and where we get those done. But I think just having one of those up on Sacramento Avenue, you know, closer to where pedestrians and people are sitting and dining would be nice, just so that they're aware.
No, I definitely agree with you. And people from out of town, I mean, a lot of people that aren't going to know about the website, I think that'd be a good part of our plan. So we'll work on that.
Across from Wheelhouse or something like that. Right?
Yeah.
And maybe on UP property as well.
Yes.
Well, the suggestion is, I have a number of low-income constituents. I live in the historic district. I fish the river downstream of the project. And we all see the sheep. And it raises questions with the notion you can actually catch and keep trout, whether they're planted or wild, during the season. Are they safe to eat? Is the water safe to drink? A lot of people, when it gets hot in the summer, want to go swimming. So it would be nice to assure the public either it's safe or it's not safe. But we don't know. Until this briefing, we don't know.
So where are we in the process? Is there somebody that's gonna talk about the research that was done into the trout and all of that?
Yeah,
I mean, I think for our folks here, a lot of it is the fishing aspect of it, and the water is so important. So I think that's what Peter's talking about, Councilman Ark is talking about there.
Cool. Hi, Wildlife Officer John Amos, California Fish and Wildlife, Office of Spill Prevention and Response. And this is,
I'm Haley Cole, California Department of Fish and Wildlife, Office of Spill Prevention and Response.
Well, thank you.
and Haley's the environmental scientist assigned to the project, and I'm the game warden assigned to the response. And before we speak to what you just asked, just to give a brief history as to our involvement and why we're here. In the fall of 2018, we received a Cal OES report that came from a member of the public, and the report had stated that, you know, they were in the area around the UP property, and they came out and there was oil that was on them. And as soon as OSPR, Office of Spill Prevention and Response, receives one of those reports, our job is to go out and take a look at what is the report referring to. And on that day we came out and to investigate that, I met Brian Wilson, and he kind of explained a little bit, knowing very well of the area. And well, you know, one of the first things I'll do is ask, you know, I don't know the area. Have you heard of such? And he's like, and then as we investigated, we had found, you know, a lot of this black material out on the walkway there, down on the downstream or down gradient of the containment wall. Dale Stoltz, who was the environmental scientist at the time, and I went and took a look. We were able to confirm that it was a product. And then we were able to get, after a few weeks, the water board, we contacted them, and then we had a little bit more understanding that this had been an ongoing project for some time. We had also were under the impression that the release into the river up until 2018 or something around 2018 made the release increase. So it seemed per reports that there was more of a release going to the river. And what we'd see, and you'd go down on it, and just as Lauren had described, something like of a thick molasses type of product. And you'd walk down on it, and I believe there were people who would go and fish that area, and they'd come back and they would have, you know, oil product, you know, on their gear and on themselves, hard to get off and whatnot. Also at that same time, we had seen quite a bit of sheen in the river, you know, and it was, you know, per previous discussions, an increase as far as the release. And, you know, and one of the reasons it is really alarming is, you know, you have the sheen and its impacts would be, you know, without the containment there, there's also a fair amount of diesel that's mixed in with the product, and that also will create that sheen up on the top, less so than the bunker C, which is maybe going into the river that you're not seeing, but you might get into the river and get it on your waders or get it on your boots. But that sheen, you know, without the current containment methods would span away, you know, would just continue on, which would lend itself to, you know, animal, you know, if you're swimming in it, you know, your animals or your dogs playing in the water, you're fishing in it, you would see sheen continuously, which we understand is not in the public's interest, which is one of the reasons why, you know, we moved forward with the emergency response phase of it, which we're still in. And per our regulations as OSPR, you know, anytime we have petroleum product entering surface waters, this is all surface waters, it constitutes an emergency response. And so that response has been ongoing up until, you know, currently. And, and we're hoping once once we can stop that product from going to the river, stop the sheen, and stop the Bunker C from going in, it'll alleviate, the, potential impacts that we've been talking about. And then, and both of those products are petroleum products, which have a toxic constituency to them. How toxic or not, it's, is up for discussion. But we do know that you will have a lot of sheen on the top of the river and a lot of sticky stuff that the public would get into if current containment methods weren't in place.
How far down does the sticky on the bottom go?
Well, right now, to our knowledge, we came out and Jacobs had, the engineers did darting. Yeah. Yep.
So it was, they did a couple investigations with a mobile unit in the river, and it was essentially right below some of the rocks to maybe a couple feet down. Along that wall, maybe 5 feet into the river.
Okay.
So it didn't go all the way under the river. It was pretty
pretty
localized
along that edge.
up against where it was coming underneath the wall.
But on the walkway that's down there is where we initially had seen it. There's since been a fabric that had been installed as part of the temporary containment for that. But initially there wasn't that textile barrier wasn't there, and it was.
But actually, this is a good segue. He mentioned the textile. So this is the wall right here that we're looking at. Currently, this was before we had the membrane up, but we have now essentially placed a membrane along this wall up where we were seeing the oil come through. So that is, if you were to get on the other side somehow, you'd see this orange kind of mat, and that's what that is. That is containing it, so it doesn't actually come out through the wall. What we can't get to right now is the stuff that's deeper, and it's coming through underneath the wall. And that's gonna, all of that will be, this will all be pulled back. This wall will be removed, and it'll look very similar to this, which is what is on the north end. So that will, essentially the yard will lose space, they will lose operating space, but, and the river will gain some distance. It will be much wider there than where it is right now, less
So-
channelized.
Yes, sir. There'll be a gradual slope. Basically, we've got the mountain, it's hard on one side of the wall. It's gonna be a gradual slope, which will allow for a lot more water to flow through there, which is safer. They could talk about the 100-year flood things and everything later on, but anyway.
Yeah, and so that's part of our, one of the goals is not just to alleviate this environmental issue, but also, if we're going to go in here and change the system, we're modeling it now to make sure that we're changing it for the better in the event of a flood.
Trout.
And I think that they will like it too.
No, I'm just curious. I wanted to hear the follow-up with the trout.
Oh, I'm sorry, that was the biologist, I cut her
No,
off.
it's okay, Laura.
So I'm Haley Cole. I'm the environmental unit leader for the emergency response. We had in 2018, 2019, we had the Office of Environmental Health Hazard and Assessment come out and conduct fish tissue samples. And that was during the more robust releases of this product. And they did not identify or detect petroleum hydrocarbons in the tissue and did not warrant a fishery closure. So that is good news for us because we can eat the fish.
Does that mean no elevated levels or just below thresholds?
Those tissues were sampled, they were below thresholds.
I mean, we're just trying to be honest with the
Right.
community and the people that want to come up here and fish.
Absolutely.
Whether they're wild or plant, and they're gonna be planting.
I just caught 5 fish today, so.
Yeah, so trout are a migratory species, right? So that, there isn't the concern of them remaining in one spot on top of the product and be, consuming product or absorbing it and then being caught. So those trout, just as that product isn't migrating all the way downstream and, throughout the entire fishery, it's pretty isolated as far as, the fish are concerned. It's a very, very small space compared to the amount of space that trout, will use.
And the resource board will tell us when it gets defanged. I mean, the other important issue for Dunsmuir is we discharge into the upper Sac, into the pristine reaches of the upper Sac. So how do we measure our load compared to UP's load in the dilution zone we have under the water board?
I can't speak to that because I don't know where your dilution
Yeah.
area is, but I would imagine that if you took samples before it got to the river and you took a sample in the river and upstream, if you took an upstream sample, you could compare it to any of those other samples and determine.
I just worry about the reduced flows heading into Lake Shasta. And obviously, the whole dilution theory is gonna be challenging for dischargers.
Thank you. Lauren, where do we go from here? We got,
Well, I think I wanted to draw your attention to what it will look like in the future. I think we've all had a chance to look at this.
Sure.
So this is a good sign, you know, that we'll all be very much, you know, thicker green material coming up. This was the last, I think we have one more slide that was just a rough schedule to give everyone an idea, but I think we've kind of talked about that. This summer, we're going to start hopefully right in June to get into that northern section. And, you know, we hope to get into the investigation near the city building toward the end of the summer, and maybe poke around a little bit earlier for some other potential sources near that building. So hopefully, you know, by November, you know how high that river can get. So we need to be buttoned up by November for sure, late October.
thank you very much for the presentation. Do you have anything else, Blake, you wanted to point out?
No, I mean, we have an agenda item coming up later if council wants to take any action on it, so we can save potential comments and things like that for that time. But I will just say that as a city standpoint, we are very excited about the future of this project and that it is environmental cleanup. And that's one of the key points that I just wanted to point out, is that we're all thankful for a cleanup of the environment. Yeah.
One thing to add, just so you know that things are planned out in the case that there is some sort of a further release. Our office has created what's called a geographic response plan, and this plan provides, you know, in the case of an emergency release or a large release into the water, this plan here identifies access points in which product can be collected and boom can be set up. So
You write that right after Canteras?
no, this is all recently done.
Just was checking.
That's my day job. And it stays updated. Maps, access points, collection points, yes, contacts, historical sites, sensitive sites, you know, from the dam down to Keswick. Yeah. So anyways, there's that, and, you know, of course, we'll always be on site in the case of a release. And the good thing about, one of the things is that with the use of Boom, which we've been using since 2018, that floating product, we're able to capture it on the top of the river and collect it and prevent it from going downstream and becoming a nuisance problem hazard for anybody downstream.
And that GRP is also on our website, so anybody can access it, the public can access it.
Would you guys?
Mr. Amos?
Yep.
You didn't answer Mr. R's question, though. Are you guys gonna be stocking the river with trout? I don't care who answers it.
It was already stocked,
Yeah.
Thursday, today. I think it got stocked today.
Is it, so we are stocking. Thank you for that. I mean, so we can report back, it's being stocked.
Well, a couple of comments. I've been up here 15 years. And I was one of the early complainants because Union Pacific continues to use wood ties in proximity to the river. And the wood ties are treated with creosote, which is the EPA knows is a carcinogen, and it also produces a sheen. So I would love in the future if UP could find an alternative to creosote treated wood ties for that part of their line that runs along right on the banks of the upper Sac. The second is I fully endorse the idea of a what's going on sign. We're a very small community. I mean, there's only 3 or 4 blocks, and the fishermen, they'll go to Ted Fay's Fly Shop, or they'll go on their own. where do I go fishing, what's good? But a lot of locals fish what we call the wall. And the wall usually has a sign with the Fish and Wildlife. This is the season, these are the techniques you could use, these are the fish you could keep. That's all gone, Big Dave. I don't know why it's all gone. And then the local hardware store gave us their best explanation, looking at your website and what the fishing regulations are from here down to the river. But I think the more information you could give people, especially if you take your boys fishing, you know, it's a family trip. We want them to be safe.
You don't want
Thank
one
you.
hypochondriac to ruin the whole thing. The sign's a good idea.
Well, if it's okay with the council, we'll close up this part and move on.
Thank you.
Thank our
Thank you
guests.
thank you to everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Does any,
I think that,
Brian Wilson has something to say.
We have an item on coming up on that.
So I just want to say that when this all started, I've been working with Lauren, and it's been, UP has really stepped up, and they're really trying to work with us, and I appreciate everything they're doing, and I think we're moving in the right direction, so thank you.
and I was gonna say that the last meeting was kind of a shocker for us when we imagined how we were gonna dismantle that building. I remember looking at it, watching it on a video and thought it was pretty small, then I realized it's a huge building. But I really appreciate the fact that we've been able to meet and develop a relationship and develop a line of communication, and I think if that happens and continues on, we'll all do well. So with that in mind.
And Brian can sleep at night.
Well, and the mayor's not here, but I did chat with the mayor who was in Sacramento last week, and he spent a fair amount of time with Francisco. And we agreed that the communication has been very, very poor, and we could throw rocks as to which side has been more poor, but especially with this project, we need to step it up. So thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And you have a contact for our PIO as of now?
And I'm gonna give you my liaison.
I'll tell you what, why don't we just pause for a moment while you guys collect and leave? I mean, in terms of whoever wants to leave, you don't have to, but take a moment and then we'll get on with the next part of this.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I will be the liaison. I will be direct, like,
Okay.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
And I'm gonna take this with me, because in case
Oh, definitely.
that we need it, I need to have this.
So is your life under control? Everything good?
My brother moved in with us.
Is that good?
No, yeah, it's good. He just is a
How many members?
Minneapolis.
Okay. All right. Okay, can
I salute you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, so it was a company given the go-ahead to work with Lee, so he moved in, Paul was in San Diego, so my husband had moved in. So yeah, so it's good, I just came home last night, so it's like I haven't had /3, I was kind of lucky this morning, I got all my laundry done. So it's like I'm coming back to everything. But I got to go to the San Diego Museum, or sorry, National San Diego Annual Conference, which was really cool stuff.
But did you go to the museum and got?
No, I did it last time, I didn't go to the San Diego Zoo.
Well, let's wrap it up, everyone. Got a long meeting ahead of us. Thank you, Lauren.
I'm gonna be here, so I'll stop by. I like to hear more.
She outright children's book. Cool. The demographics. of the-
Okay, with that in mind, we'll move on with the agenda. And next on the agenda is public comment. So do we have anybody from the public for commenting today? Tim?
And I just want to reiterate that we will have the UP item later.
Yeah, we will have the UP item later, so any comments on this presentation we can take later.
Okay, Tim Holt, 6235 Hill Street. More than 2 years ago, this council, to its credit, passed an abandoned and distressed real property ordinance. The thinking behind this ordinance, model after one adopted in Weed, is that buildings with no tenants and no operating businesses often fall into disrepair, sometimes to conditions beyond repair. That's why it's essential that there be both exterior and interior inspections of all the vacant buildings in the historic district without any exceptions. And I'll quote from the ordinance: "The owner of any abandoned or distressed commercial property shall provide access to the city to conduct an exterior and interior inspection of the building or structure to determine compliance with the municipal code." I know that Mark Allen and Building Inspector James McIntyre are dedicated to fulfilling this inspection requirement in the ordinance. As someone very interested in the preservation and enhancement of our historic district, I suggest there be an update on the progress of these inspections at the next council meeting. And on a kind of related matter, I believe the Planning Commission is going to take up the idea of landmark designation for the California Theater at its meeting May 11th. That will be a preliminary hearing. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. And we got a public comment from Linda Shaven.
Yes, hi, Linda Shaben. I know my zone. I'm in Dunsmuir Zone 6420, the Upper Soda Springs. And our mayor is also in the same zone. So I just wanted to make a few comments. We're looking forward to working with you folks and Adam from OES to roll out the Know Your Zone campaign. And I wanted to thank Bruce. Thank you, Bruce, for your great liaison work with DPAC. You've been real helpful to us in terms of doing some recruitment and some promotion. And thank you for your willingness to send out a mailer to our community to get them educated on the Know Your Zone campaign. I also wanted to just bring everybody's attention to this Saturday, May 7th, up in College of the Siskiyous. It's the first annual Siskiyou Wildfire Community Preparedness Day. So folks can go to the McLeod Room in Weed at the College of the Siskiyous on campus. It's McLeod Room is number 103, and it's from 10 a.m. to noon this Saturday, May 7th. So you can get a lot of information there about how we can continue to prepare for wildfire season. We've had this wonderful rain, so we've got a little breathing room, but people still need to get ready, be prepared, get their go bags ready, continue to work on hardening their home, and get signed up on Code Red and know their zone with the new Zone Haven. And I think we're going to try to work with CAL FIRE is open to having some presence at Railroad Day. So I'm going to work with Chief Padilla and the Fire Safe Council and CAL FIRE to see if we can have a little section on Saturday at Railroad Days for some interactive, kid-friendly fire safety things. So kudos to all of you for the good work you're doing. I appreciate you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? Nobody else online? I do have to admit, working with DPAC has been a real joy between Brian, Kathleen, Stephen Cutting. They're all good folks and they're doing a good job. So thank you. With that, I'll move on from public comment. We just lost our police officer, so I'll move over to our city manager for his staff report.
I don't think I have anything. I think we're working hard here at City Hall. We got great staff, and I just want to say that.
Mr. Arth.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. as an older person, read the Dunsmuir News religiously, and there was an article entitled "The Spirit of Dunsmuir" in this week's paper. It's written by Harriet Alto, a dear friend of mine, who moved here, according to the article, in the summer of '52, when Dunsmuir had a population of 5,000 people. And she goes through with affection how wonderful a community this is and how resilient it is. And so I just want to recognize Harriet as one of the stalwarts of our community.
Yes, sir.
At our last meeting, we blessed Ron McLeod as the town historian. And as a follow-up, because we know Ron has probably the biggest stock of historic photos of Dunsmuir, California, as anybody in the world, could he work with the mayor or others to find 2 or 3 historical photos? I'm happy to work with the Siskiyou Arts Museum to have them blown up and framed, but there's not a lot of character in this room where we meet with the ceiling crack and all. And I think it would be nice to give us all a sense of historic background when we do our work.
Here, here.
And Ron said he'd be happy to do that. And I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Cool.
On that note, Peter, I think that another thing that brings up is if he has all these old photos, they probably should be scanned so that we don't lose them in case something happens. And I've got a scanner that's pretty easy to use. Maybe I can work with him and help him get those all scanned for future use.
Well, this is,
Particularly
he
for the
also
road here.
possesses the complete inventory of the historic district. So graduate student came down from Oregon State, worked with what was the Historic District Management Committee. So there's an inventory of every single building, when it was built, its history.
Wow.
And all of this needs to be archived if we're going to stick with our, Ron isn't going to last forever. A number of them are in his books with Deborah Hartman, but as a community, if we care about the district, we need to start archiving.
That's a good idea, Pete. It's a great idea. Couple of nice pictures up there.
Councilwoman Lucchese.
Hello. I'm very tired, as always. I apologize for my absence last time. I wasn't feeling well, and didn't want to bring it to anybody, and I just thought I'd take some medication and tough
We
it
got
out.
by. We got by.
Thankfully, passed pretty quickly, not COVID, which is great. Still knocking on wood for that. I had the pleasure of going to the American Planning Association's first national conference in a couple of years now since COVID started. So I just got back yesterday from that, which is the national conference, which is a collection of all of the planners throughout the United States and internationally. There were a couple of people from Israel, Finland, and the Philippines that presented this year, which was lovely to go to. So I'll be putting together a report for my actual job, but I think there were lots of things in there pertaining to dealing with housing, dealing with the fentanyl crisis that's going on in the United States. That was a really interesting presentation from the city of Henderson and city of Las Vegas, which were great. So I'll hopefully share that information with everybody here as well. There's some really cool stuff going on in other cities, small, large, they cover the gambit, which is pretty nice. Other than that, just been working with the mayor on the city manager recruitment materials. I think we've got everything out and ready to go. They'll be posting that hopefully tomorrow. We had a couple of delays just with the mayor being out and making sure we got his input on the brochures. And doing that. So making sure that keeps going forward smoothly. And I think that's all I have to report for right now, that I can remember.
Thank you, ma'am. Sir?
Thanks, sir. I'm kind of excited about this thing with UP and the fact that they're trying to work with us. There were a few of us that had a field trip today, got to actually look at some of the work that they've been doing. And it's relieving to see how they are taking the fish, the environment, the people, everything into consideration on this project. And I gotta tell you, they got a killer crew, and it's like all these different, smart people. And then everybody's got their own aspect, it's pretty cool. And I'm excited for the project, and I'm excited for the town, because finally we get to clean up, and people can stop, as Peter said, come up, get scared about fishing and jumping in the water. I like that. It's coming up, people. The Railroad Days is gonna be here, and I'm glad to say that there's a gentleman at the pellet mill in, I think, Montague. He's loaning me 30 bales of straw for we can have a soapbox derby races. So I'm happy for that. The soapbox derby races will be June 12th. They'll start at 9 o'clock. There'll be soapbox derbies at one end of town and a hot rod show at the other end of town. So come on out, it's gonna be fun. Bring your kids. Pants, shoes, no shorts, no sandals. And they have to wear the protective gear that I supply. The Brewfest is gonna happen, it's in August, I think the first weekend in August. That's good. Everybody was worried, and I did a shout out to Caltrans, and I asked them to have somebody come up here and educate us about the freeway project coming up. And they said that we have a 1-year reprieve. So everybody that was worried about the Caltrans project, it ain't gonna happen until next year. So it went from 22, 23 thing, 22, 23, 24, it's now 23, 24, 25. So it got put off, and that's good. And that's all I have. That's all I have for now, other than, that was a hell of an idea, Peter, about having a couple of signs up there. We need to dress, that's good.
We'll get her done.
We'll get her done. Oh, one more. I know it's raining, but it's time. Well, as soon as it stops raining, I'm asking for help. I'm gonna say Saturday, May 21st. I'm organizing, and I will lead the way with hopefully a handful of volunteers. It's time to clean the cemetery again. It doesn't look so good. And we got Railroad Days coming with a lot of people coming to town. It's time to clean up our cemetery. So May 21st, let's say starting at 9 o'clock, Cemetery Brigade, bring your weed eaters and blowers. I'm sure the city will provide us trash bags.
I was gonna say, if I can get authorization from the city manager, maybe Public Works can help you work that.
That would be awesome, but it's time. And we'll get a volunteer crew, let's say, if it's all right, May 21st at 10 o'clock, and we'll get her done. If everybody helps, it only takes a couple hours. I've done it myself and took 3 days, so please come.
Well, I've gone out to 3 different contractors doing it, and we can't get a single response back.
We'll do it ourselves.
So I appreciate the conversation,
Yeah.
but it's not a back and forth today.
I agree. Moving on then, I will pass on, apparently Matthew Boyce said he was fine with this. I'd like to point out that he's not here because he does have COVID. So he asked to share that, so hope he gets better fast and get him back. From my standpoint, I want to point out that back last week, we had a mixer for the Chamber of Commerce. All of us here were there, and I thought it went really well. There was a lot of energy, and I really do hope that any of the businesses out there, if they hear anything from an outreach from the Chamber, that they recognize that any of the things that they complained about in the years past, what did or didn't happen, that's the years past, and we got a new group that's ready to put energy in, and hope that goes well. I am going to talk about this in detail on the agenda, but I did want to bring up just for the public that aren't going to stick around for that perhaps, that I am working on coming up with a volunteer fair. Hopefully it'll be the first of an annual volunteer fair, particularly aimed at getting new folks involved that have not really had a chance to volunteer and get some part of the community that keeps the community going. The Saturday, the 21st, I was hoping for, but that's already taken up at the community building. Now I'm trying a different approach. The operative time I'm looking for right now with Mike Rodriguez, I got a call into him, is Sunday, May 22nd in the afternoon. So the idea would be people go off and do their church and do those other things. And I think actually there might be a better turnout there than trying to get people on a Saturday morning to do whatever else they're doing and then find time to get down there. So I'll be talking a little bit more about it during that, but that's all I had for my comment then. Committee reports, any committee reports?
Well, just to follow up on Councilmember Lucchese and the recruitment committee, I will be having my interview Monday afternoon with the recruitment team.
Oh, good. I've got to get myself connected with them.
I'll be having mine's 10 o'clock on Tuesday. So that's when I have my meeting with the recruitment.
So no other.
Real quick, I just wanted to comment on committees for solid waste. Do we want to provide direction? I may not be available at 5 on Monday, but I can always give a Zoom link. I could give a Zoom link out if somebody wants to start it at some point.
Are you available at 5:30?
No, probably maybe later than that.
Okay.
But or I can try. I can definitely try.
This is for solid waste.
This is
So
for solid waste.
for solid
All right,
waste, yeah.
Is 5 o'clock okay?
As long as you let me know.
Okay, yeah, if you want to send out a Zoom link for 5 o'clock and just let Diana know.
Okay. We'll go for that. Do we want to work together on agenda?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay, with that in mind, we move on to approval of the minutes.
Makes a motion to approve the minutes from April 21st, 2022.
Second?
First and a second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all those opposed, nobody opposed, one person
Abstention.
absent.
Oh, she's abstaining because she wasn't
Oh,
here?
that's right, abstain. Okay, so 3, 4, 1 abstaining and 1 not present.
Wendy got it.
There you go. Okay, then we have the consent agenda. The consent agenda for today has a check register for 4/16 through 4/20, resolution 2022 calling, I gotta get my glasses on. Calling noticing general election 11/8/22 and request consolidation with statewide election and fireworks ban resolution.
I'll make a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, so that's passed. No public hearing today, no old business, moving on to new business. Environmental project on Union Pacific Railroad, general information item as well as how the project relates to City Public Works building. So that's the fun part of this. Mr. City Manager.
Yeah, so I think we had the discussion earlier, the actual presentation about the project. So I'm happy to see that going forward. Now we're going to get down to the nuts and bolts of it, city council wise, and we really need to start looking forward, future planning now. So one, where's Public Works going to go? How are we going to do it? Yada, yada, all the plans there. Staff could really use some interested parties' help. I think it'd be a great idea to try and staff has recommended that we try and get some other folks involved. And so I think it'd be a great idea. I don't know if Big Dave, you want to take
I'm ready
it?
to jump.
Dave?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, I would like to form a committee of people to take a look at that building, and then report back to council. I would like to head that committee. I'd like to work with Brian Wilson and Mario Ravino and 2 other members. We'll post things like we do for committees at City Hall, people that are interested. I'm hoping to get maybe like an architectural engineer that can step forward and give us some ideas. But the idea is, it's our building, it can't be taken apart, it can be relocated, which saves us a lot of money. So, and Union Pacific mentioned that they might be able to help us do that. So they're willing to work hand in hand. They feel really bad about this 35 days. So they're really working with us and they're helping us. They're actually providing things to help us not have to be out in 35 days. But if it's okay with council, we'd like to form a committee and take a look at salvaging the building and relocating it with the help of UP and people from the town. So
let's hold on to the decision on that. Sounds like a good idea, but let's what else are we looking at here, and how do we want to fit this in?
Yes,
That's what they're
so this is kind of a speedy process. It could be very flexible. We want it to be flexible.
But I mean, I guess the point is.
So we're trying to,
We're not gonna take the building down in a short period of time, are we?
it's essentially, we're trying to figure this all out, right? So the idea is to form some kind of ad hoc committee or we have staff help that is able to provide expertise in providing help. And so that's one piece of it, trying to really decide who is there value in the building? Is there value in disassembling it and reassembling it? Or aside from that, what's the future plan? What is the ideal situation for our buildings or our building as it goes in the future? And we definitely want to have public comment on this as well. But the kind of the third leg of this stool is going to be actual finances. So what's the funding? So I'm imagining we're going to be needing some allocating of resources at this point. Dave mentioned getting engineers to come forth. So I'm looking for council to say, let's allocate some resource to this. Let's see about getting an engineer. We need to get the concrete pads, depending on what exactly we're going to move forward with. And I realize it's going to take an more extensive staff report. But it would be nice to have it go forward where we can develop, whether it's an ad hoc committee or whether you guys just want to provide direction as you all see fit sitting here. Any other questions on that?
Are you going to be doing site feasibility as part of this process?
I would love to get the planning opinion on that. We will check with city planner.
Okay.
And it's a great
Well,
question.
Again, I bring it up is, it may be part of this because you want to take a look at where you're going to be locating it.
Yeah.
As opposed to just focusing on the building itself. It's where will you be locating it? Do we have any city-owned property that's eligible or preferential? Or are we looking at also purchasing property on top of this? That should probably be part of the whole discussion.
Exactly. All great questions and
I'm
can
trying not to
be
go to
discussed.
discussion, so.
Yeah, no.
So if we don't have any other questions right now, let's open up for public comment. Or you have a question here?
No, just a comment.
Okay. I'm opening up to public comment. We have a member of the public that knows something about this.
Actually, I'm coming here unpaid right now, so I'm on behalf of the city of Dunsmere as the public works supervisor. I'm going to talk about a little bit about the project, if you're okay with that.
Yes, sir.
And so about 3 weeks ago, it all came about, or a month ago, that we were going to maybe lose the building in 35 days. And Union Pacific, they've really reached out and they're giving us time, but they want to see that we're moving in a direction and we have a potential landing spot for our building, and that they want it to happen sooner than later. So I think Dave is right on track with the committee, because from what I've seen is a lot of people have a lot of really good ideas, but if you can't gather them into one place, they just are ideas. So I think that's a really good start. And I think that as for part of a potential location, there's things that we have to take into mind of snow removal is very, very important. If we go outside of the city limits and have to mobilize city equipment through the county into the city, it just looks really bad and it's really hard to explain. Time, if we have to go like to the airport, the mobilization of what it's going to take to get us down here. We own city property by the city park, which we are using as a temporary location. We've moved our bunkers and all this stuff from outside to that location, so we can. The plan is Union Pacific has said, can you please get everything out from around the building right now? If you get everything out from around the perimeter of the building, we can work with you and do a lot of our perimeter digging, and you can leave your sweeper, your loader, your backhoe, your air compressor, and your dump truck all there for the time being while we do our perimeter digging. And that is huge for the city to have that stuff in a secure, dry location. And they said I can come in and grab the equipment if I need it during the project. They will leave me a bay open. So they're really working with us now to try to let us keep doing my job. Some of the challenges, I don't have any staffing right now. I am a one-man band right now. So for me to try to move this shop by myself is just absurd. So I think that that needs to be discussed at some point and getting me some help in there. Blake and I are working on it. We've reached out, but that needs to be addressed. You know, we are working on it. So there's just a lot of stuff down there. I'd like to, somehow we need to come up with a surplus. We're gonna have to go through and do a bunch of surplusing of stuff down there. So we're gonna have to come up with a plan. That's another committee item that the committee could work through. So
Sounds more like a task force.
I don't.
Well, so Brian,
Because he's got a whole wall of air filters and
So
oil
again,
filters.
we're just
Don't
in
fit
public
in.
comment for tonight.
Okay, so if any of you council members would like to come tour the shop, let me know. I'll open the doors up and you can get a real check at what the real reality of it is and what the problems are. I will gladly come give you the tour. Please just let Blake know. And I want you guys to be part of this process too. It affects everybody, and I hope you all can come put your hands on a little bit and go look at come down and check out the cleanup process. It's been going on for about 3 years now, and it's pretty impressive. So, and UP has tried. That was what I took from today. My take from the walkthrough is they've really put in a lot of effort in the past years of controlling this oil. Now the technology is a lot better and they can go in and do a better job. And I feel like that's what's going to happen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Although that wasn't quite a public, that was kind of half a public. No other public comments. Then we'll go back to discussion. Peter, you had something before we
Well,
close there?
I mean, our Public Works Department made the obvious point. We have no budget and no staff.
Other than
For
that.
any aspect of this project. So we do know now, we're linked together with the state of California and Union Pacific that has a lot of assets and resources. But it seems to me, as we talk about moving the building in the near term, and what that valuable piece of property can look like once remediated, it could be a big key to the future of the city of Dunsmuir as we move from railroad and coal and bunker oil and diesel to the future. Here you're going to have a remediated brownfield site right by the Upper Sac in the middle of town. So I think whether there's a committee or not, you need to, hopefully with a public works director, start. The three issues for me are budget, liability, and planning for the future of the remediated area. But to the extent Union Pacific is saying, boy, you got to move all or part of it, what are we supposed to do?
Let me propose something just to kind of move things along here. I propose that we form a task force just to kind of give it more than just a committee, to let people know this is something that has some power and need behind it. With Dave as chairman, that's a proposal. And then with the idea in mind that Juliana works her magic in terms of coming up with a charter for that. And Matthew would be the second person on the task force.
You
I'm
know, three council members on one, can't have that.
No, I'm just saying,
No, it's, I wouldn't be in on it.
yeah, she's just going to be doing the creation of the charter, if you would you?
Yeah, I think you should talk to Matthew before assigning, I think
That's a good point.
I think an ad hoc is a better idea. I think we can bring that to the next meeting. The reason why I think an ad hoc is better than anything else is that you only need two people to get that together, where you put together a standing committee like finance.
Oh, I
you have
wouldn't
to-
say standing,
yeah,
certainly not.
You
no.
have to still deal with that.
Yeah.
Again, people can be invited to the ad hoc if they want. Members of the public can, go to those. I would say we have to bring it back to vote on it for the full charter, so I don't mind putting that together if
Yeah,
you'd
if
like.
you would, that's enough. And again,
then
it's
I
just a
just-
proposal that's moved us along at this point.
And then I just outlined basically the points you're gonna have to bring up at the thing. So I don't know if you want me to.
already have an outline of the ad hoc charter?
not the charter, but what you'll probably have to do. It's 4 sections actually. Site feasibility, talking about access location, whether it's city owned or we're gonna have to purchase new property, budget. Demo timeline, cost of deconstruction, cost of moving that, location for storage of that building if you're not able to reconstruct in a short timeline. I took a photo, so I'll send it to you.
Okay, good.
Cost benefit analysis of deconstruction versus new, because when it comes down to it, moving a building from one property to the other is not that simple from a planning perspective, because you still have to abide by the California Building Code. So moving it to a new property, it's a new structure. And so we'd have to work with James on what those requirements are gonna be. And so reconstruction costs time, permitting, and then the surplus and equipment, plus transport, storage of that equipment. So I mean, that's a very rough, just running through I have to do this for other site analysis. We're doing it for our fire hall up in Wairika, so it's there right now. So that's just a general outline of the things that would have to be brought up. And again, I probably missed something. The surplusing equipment was something I did not think about till Brian brought it up, which is good. So I'll email it.
If Union Pacific has a sense of urgency around the city improvement, the public works building, it seems like the staff and UP have to work out what are options 1, 2, and 3 to get it done. We all watched the deconstruction of the car barn, and to the best of my knowledge, the city didn't have a role in that. That was all UP, special contractors. There was asbestos in the building. It took a lot of cutting torches and proper disposal because none of it was salvageable. That to me, we're not going to hire 10 people to do this. It seems like UP ought to pay for a crew. First, an assessment, as Juliana said, what's salvageable, what isn't. And secondly, whatever's salvageable or to replicate what we need, where's it going and what's it going to look like? And will the state help us? Will the railroad help us? We don't have it.
My idea was the railroad's they're already accepting bids on people to dismantle that.
But it's ours.
They're helping us. Well, so now here's the contractor who UP is paying to dismantle this. What does that contractor want to reassemble for us?
But let's not do it a piece at a time. Let's actually think it through.
Well, that's what part of the thing is. The awning has to come down before they can do work. So,
and if they're going to take responsibility for it, and we're going to sit by like the car barn, that's a scenario. But that's not what the letter said. The letter said you move your stuff.
But see, now they're willing to help us.
I understand.
Okay.
I hear it.
So with that in mind, what I propose then is that we table this and come back to the next council meeting with a full.
Put it on the agenda.
On the
next
agenda.
meeting. Agendized as for the next meeting, not table it.
Well, no, it's tabled to the next.
Because it's on the meeting right now.
Okay. In the hopes to create an ad hoc committee.
Okay, with that in mind, next item. I assume this is pretty quick, a water enterprise update? Or is this long?
Vice Mayor?
Yes.
I have a conflict with, I don't know if this is just going to be a report out and we sit and listen, but I'm one of the property owners that has Bradley Creek flowing through my
that's what this
property.
is?
So I'm happy to leave for the whole item or stay, or I don't know what we're doing.
It doesn't bother me.
It's informational at this point. I mean, it's just one piece.
I have no problem with it.
Juliana?
It's from a legal perspective, if it has anything to do with potential litigation or potential future decisions, Councilmember Arth, it would probably be best if you did excuse yourself as if you had a dog in the fight.
And I do have a dog in the fight.
So that would probably be the
phrase is discuss and deliver. So
Suppose we move that to the end of the agenda so he can be out, he can sit and move on with these folks, is what I'm thinking.
it'll be quick, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, thank you.
Yeah. It's better to be cautious.
I respect that, that's why I asked you.
Started mentioning that legal aspect, yeah, you got to go.
So, Mr. City Manager.
All right, so I just wanted to do a bullet pointed item list for the water enterprise. So you might have seen the water main project is starting back up again. You've seen SNL, they're the contractors. They've been right here on Dunsmuir Avenue. So that is the completion of our water mains project. And so just a quick,
Say that again?
the water mains.
Completion is the word I heard. Is that what you said?
Oh, yeah, the completion of that particular project, right?
Oh, it's not the whole thing though, right?
Correct, right.
Oh,
We'll get into that in a
I always
second.
thought we were having a party or something.
We'll get into that in a second. But so far, of the specific project right now, it's a $10.3 million project. Of that now, we're about 70% complete all the way. We've got about 3.5 miles of pipe replaced, and we've got about 1,100 meters changed in this project. So really, ultimately, just wanted to say that project's starting back up again. We also have a downtown tank project, which the current tank, and this is where Mr. Arth, I guess, had to excuse himself, but the current tank is designed not to overflow, whereas the current tank is designed to overflow. So the one that's in there in operation right now, there is a tank in operation currently in our system that it was designed to have water come in and water go out constantly through various reasons that I can't quite fathom in my brain, but the water folks do. So due to a couple different factors, chlorination reasons, emergency chlorination reasons, and other system improvements, the new tank that is getting constructed right now, so that's one of the main bullet points, is there is Stewart Engineering Incorporated has just started their redo or their building of this new tank. So this new tank there is no design for overflow. And so that's.
Before you move on, the one thing I do want to point out is the key reason for moving the tank is to make it high enough so that the pressure in the system is such that there won't be a time when we end up not having enough pressure because of the fire. So raising it higher is part of the key reason for this.
Yeah, so definitely. So I bring this up in the fact that there is, as you in the staff report, there's a group of citizens that are asking for a new tank to potentially release water. And so I've been in discussions now with these group of concerned citizens that are wishing for that. So I just want to bring that to council's attention, maybe bring it out into the open, that we'll be working back and forth.
Was discussed previously by previous councils.
Oh, it was, okay. It was brought up to previous councils.
Yeah, this was brought before the council prior to us reading it.
Yeah, certainly.
Okay.
Well,
Prior to that,
we
yeah.
wanted it down the road, essentially.
Not, technically, there was a decision, but anyway, sorry, continue.
Yeah. So that's downtown tank. Now getting into, Bruce, your point for future, right? So PACE is now tasked with potentially trying to go forward for planning grants. So building an application for future funding possibilities to complete the rest of the water system, right? So we're allocating resources to PACE to look for funding sources, start that process, which will get reimbursed once because there's a lot of funds right now for water projects. So I just want to say that we are continually looking forward in our water system to get the rest of it improved. There is, so now going to the fourth bullet point, there was a Crag View consolidation. So that is, the state of California is pushing toward consolidation of water systems, small water systems. So there is lots of grant funding and things like that for potential consolidation. They've sent us a letter, the city of Dunsmuir, to look at and just inquire. So we're now in the preliminary infancy stage of looking into merging Cragview water system with city of Dunsmuir water system. So Cragview, as we know, is just south from like the treatment plant south. Again, very infancy. We've got a little bit of it of work, very small numbers, and I just want to bring that up. Okay, fifth bullet point, water meters being replaced right now with more accurate ones that include the technology that reduces the time required for reading, right? So we have now drastically reduced the time requirement for staff to read meters. We are investigating now a possibility of advancing this system so that we will have hour by hour, minute by minute data at our fingertips at City Hall. So we're just looking into that. That's an advanced system capability.
That would be new water mains on
No, this is all water meter
it?
technology.
I mean, water meters, I'm sorry, water
Yeah,
meters.
so it wouldn't be new meters. It would be a data collection point that ultimately allows staff to say, if somebody calls up and says, is my water leaking right now? We could look at that particular meter at that moment and say, yes, there is water flowing through that meter, yada, yada, pull data. So this is a great step forward in terms of relaying to public. It's a great resource for public use of their water meter. I mean, that's their system, right? That once they're in their house. And also in terms of for drought, we will get at City Hall instantaneous notifications if there is something that's been amiss. Whereas right now we are looking at monthly data. So we're going to take that monthly knowledge and reduce that down to hopefully daily. So it's a big improvement, especially in terms of drought timeframe. Okay, the next bullet point, I just wanted to briefly mention the discontinuation policy. We have talked about this, we brought it up, but just to reiterate, state Senate bill establishes a water discontinuation policy, whereas water cannot be discontinued for non-payment unless it's 60 days in arrears or delinquency. Delinquency begins on the very first of the month. So right off the bat, that's when the first day of delinquency happens. So you have that month to pay your bill, then another 30 days past that to pay the bill. And then if that's not paid, then the first Monday following that 60 days is the shut-off date. So I just want to reiterate that. It's a slight variation from what our previous practices were, but according to the Senate bill, this is what we're doing. And we have stated that in the past. Next bullet point, springs improvement. That's the IRWM, IRWM. That's going to be going out to bid for construction in 2023, hopefully. We are just small notes that we are doing a cross-connection control program. We are continuing to implement that. So Dennis, main water operator, is still going forward with getting those surveys. Many people have completed those surveys. And it is the bottom line, most important thing I want to state with cross-connection control is that it provides for a safer water system. Lastly, I was at the water conference this last week, and there is a going forward state mandate for knowing our lead service lines. So I just want to just say that out there in the world. We are going to be looking toward that. We don't have any knowledge right now of any lead service lines, but we still have investigation to do and still things to follow. And so that kind of relates to this fun little diagram that I posted in the agenda packet on page 14. And so it also shows your sewer lateral and your water lateral. So essentially, I showed this cute diagram, cute picture, because I wanted to show the water meter there. And
You have it posted at City Hall?
plus, no, but I think I might blow
Post
this.
at City
I
Hall.
might blow this thing up
This
and
explains it.
yeah. Yeah, it actually is really great. And so you do see homeowner responsibility and utility service responsibilities. So it's a good diagram. That's it. Questions, comments?
Questions?
Just for the Craig View project,
Yep.
are we anticipating a LAFCO application to expand our service area to accommodate that?
That's a great question. I had a slight thought about it. I don't know. It's in a different county as well. And right, so LAFCO is like, you don't have the option.
Two LAFCOs. Oh, that's fine.
So that's where potentially it could just be, hey, we're just gonna provide, it's just gonna be an extension of an enterprise fund and not have to worry about LAFCO stuff. But we have to,
I don't know if you can.
Yeah.
it's something to
If
look
we're- If we're
into.
providing service, it's expanding our service area.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. And then they can't,
LA, Orange County would be good to look at how they do all of
oh,
that,
that's a great point, yeah.
because they're all intermingled so much.
That's a good trivia question. What are the only two things that LA and Orange County has to do with Dunsmuir?
Is sharing services.
Right.
Yeah, I know some of the metros might be a better option for that, see if they have independent water services or if they have combined, they probably at least have combined wastewater. We can maybe look at their
Yeah.
stuff and not reinvent the wheel. But anyway, no, thank you.
Yeah, we'll see. Good point.
I'll open this up for public comment at this point. If there's any public that would like to comment on our water supply system and our updates and maintenance thereof.
Alex Brendel, Eleanor Avenue, 10 months resident. So the outlet of the tank, where there was a creek, there will no longer be a creek. Is that correct? No stream going outside, out of the tank?
That is, well, this is not supposed to be a back and forth, so
Oh,
go ahead and
right.
ask your question
That's
now.
the question I have, and that's the concern I have. Actually, I don't really need an answer, but if you're changing nature, it seems to me that that's going to be a problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else with a public comment? If not, I shall close it, and I will say that for the summary of people who aren't familiar with this particular challenge, as city manager was mentioning, there's a tank right up by the high school, and it has to overflow for the system to work. And what that did when they put that in was it took a stream system that was seasonal and made it year-round.
Well, technically, no.
The drainage ditch.
It's technically a drainage ditch.
Drainage ditch.
It is technically not a recognized creek, water channel, or waterway of the state of California or the US.
Good, thank you.
So the Department of Fish and Wildlife, as well as other federal departments, have reviewed this issue and have determined that it is not a recognized waterway.
That's an imperative statement.
So it is not. It is over. So again, it's not back and forth, but technically, and these are in the historic documents.
Right.
So this did come up previously a number of years ago.
I think it was before me then, because I hadn't got that part of it.
Yeah, it was.
I dealt with it.
Yeah, it was several years ago, but I had gotten a similar concerned citizen who asked me about what was going on. So I just looked at the public records that are available, which people can request. And then I just, asked our city engineers at the time and the environmental consultants who worked on it at the time, and they said that per Department of Fish and Wildlife, they had determined that it is not a waterway. And that is why they were allowed to continue. So again, that's all I know. I did not keep digging into that, but that is what my understanding of the current situation is.
So, go ahead, Dave.
Keep in mind, the deal was the tank that they put in, it had the overflow. It was said earlier, water went in and water went out. That's what it was designed to do. Now with that tank, I could put a fire out at the school. There's no water pressure. So to enhance the safety, to put fire out at the schools, to increase that water pressure, it was a different tank designed that's higher. It holds more volume of water so that you can put the water out, but it doesn't have an overflow. So that not designated creek will run dry.
So who knows what will happen with that?
To avoid discussion on the item, this is information only, and I would
Exactly.
advise the council to
Table it, yep.
just information only.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that. So the whole idea is that this was an update on all the various things going on with the water system. This has been something that's been lingering in the background, and we're not going to deal with it at this meeting because it wasn't an action item for that. Yes?
I make a motion to accept this report.
I don't think we even need
Yeah,
to
we
take
see
action
all
today.
Bottom, it says suggestion motion to accept the report. So I did that. You feel better?
I thank you for making the motion. It's not necessary exactly, but if you want to keep going with it, it's fine. Either way, go for it.
Okay.
With that in mind, let's get down to the folks who've been waiting around for us.
Let me grab Peter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Peter back.
Yep.
And putting this that poster with the building and owner responsibility, city responsibility with your lateral and water main, that, you need to put that at City Hall because people can see that when they understand it. Yeah. It's not a debate after that.
Welcome back, sir. Okay. Okay, we're moving on to committee appointments. We have DPAC, Disaster Preparedness Advisory Committee, with 2 open spaces. We've only got 1 application at the moment, so he'll be coming up. And then we have Finance with 2 open spaces and 2 applicants. So let's lead off, Mr. City Manager, with DPAC.
You said it perfectly. I don't need to provide any more.
Alex, would you please come forward and tell us why you want to get involved here? That's usually what we do with committee assignments, is ask the folks to say why, and then we go from there.
I'm concerned about wildfires and I want to help out, do something about it for myself so that I'm not homeless because of a wildfire and so that Dunsmere residents are not homeless because of wildfire.
You've got some other areas, though, that you're also interested in along those lines, right? Greenways, for instance, things like that. I just thought I'd point out that you can tell a little bit more about why you want to do it.
It's not related. It's a separate issue. Separate issue.
I do have just a quick clarifying question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Just reading your application, it was a little abrasive. Just kind of saying, typically when people answer those, it's about, why they want to get involved, things like that. You would put a statement. Sometimes people don't agree with you, and that, it was just a little bit. Could you maybe comment on, thank you. Yeah, I have communication skills, even if I piss people off occasionally, it's unintentional. It was just a little abrasive, and I was wondering if you could just kind of talk about some of those communication skills that you would use in this situation, working on a committee with DPAC.
Thank you. Yeah, to clarify what I meant, I said specifically, I have some volunteer time to contribute. I have communication skills, even if I piss people off occasionally. I think anybody that's been involved in politics realize that there's lots of different people have different ideas. And I wasn't trying to be abrasive at all. I was kind of giving maybe a suggestion or a warning that I know I'm going to piss people off. I know I've said this to Peter a few times. If you're involved in politics, it happens, you're going to piss people off. And that's simply because there's a different point of view. It's not that I was trying to be abrasive, and I specifically said it's unintentional that I piss people off. I don't intend to piss people off. So I'm just recognizing that there's going to be people that are angry because they don't like my point of view. But that's okay. But that's okay. I play well with others. I mean, in a sandbox, children need to learn to get along with each other. And hopefully that happened at a younger age.
Well, Alex, one thing I think I'd point out, just as part of a conversation here, I understand the idea that politics and all of that, but when we're talking about the committees we're talking about more than anything else, can you get along with the folks? And, and I think that I've observed you and I see that you're fine. I haven't observed you pissing anybody off. So I think, just to be clear, what we're talking about is, can you, just be a part of a committee and give your inputs, and if it doesn't get taken, you're going to be okay. I think that's
Team player.
Team player. I think that's what the concern would be from your input. So how do you think about that?
I've played team sports. I'm a team player.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, one last thing I'd like to add is that I see that I applied for this and it was received by the city January 22nd. So a lot has changed since then. It's been almost, 5 months, 6 months, was May. I reread this for today's meeting, my application. I was like, oh my God, that was 5 months ago. A lot's changed since then.
Thank you. Well, I asked Linda Shaven, the committee chair, or actually she's not the chair at the moment, but I asked her to be around, and so if she has any comments you'd like to make, Linda?
Miss Linda, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I don't really have any particular comments other than that we really do need volunteers and people that can work well and are team players and have the capacity to work with a variety of people in our community, but DPAC definitely needs some additional members. So it's an important appointment, and I appreciate the fact that Alex has volunteered his time to want to try helping us at DPAC.
Okay, thank you.
Blake, does DPAC have quorum?
That's the key they're worrying about right now is quorum, because Steve Cutting is dropping off right now.
Okay.
That's actually a good question. I don't know off the top of my head.
I think it's.
Yeah, we'll have a quorum. There are 3 of us remaining. When Steve Cutting leaves, Mike Delabana has left. There are 3 of us for a quorum.
Okay, thank you. I have a proposal. I'm a little concerned about just the communication in general today and the application, and I understand that you put it in a while ago. And I know that you're very inspired to volunteer. And I know that DPAC, needs the people. We started DPAC, like this council in particular started DPAC. And I think one of the things I'm very proud of is not necessarily the work that they have accomplished, although it is extraordinary. It is absolutely extraordinary what they've accomplished. They have always been a very collegial group and a very collaborative group, and I don't want to introduce people into that group that are not going to continue that spirit of camaraderie forward. So I'm appreciative of your volunteerism, and I would almost want to encourage you to attend a couple meetings and see how you mesh with the committee before I'd be open to appointment. So I'm curious if it's an option to table the appointment for 2 months, just to give you 2 meetings with the committee to see how the interaction goes with communication. I don't know if that's like a legitimate option, but again, I appreciate the volunteerism, but at the end of the day, the committee itself has just been extraordinary, and I don't want to put them in a position that divides them or causes issues. That is the most, again, that's what I would prefer to do today, and encourage you to go and do that. That would be my preference.
I don't know why he wrote this like he wrote it, but I know this man. I had the honor of watching this man get inducted to the Rotary with us last week, by the governor, by the way. I truly believe this man would be an asset. I know all the people on the committee, and I know he might have wrote it wrong, and I don't know what the hell he was thinking when he wrote that, but I vouch for this man. I think he would be an asset to the city, to the committee. That's my opinion. I know him. I'm honored to be a Rotarian with him. The man is all about dedication, volunteerism, help out wherever I can.
This is just a point.
So that's my opinion.
Linda, your thoughts?
Well, again, we're not in public comment.
No, I know, I'm talking about it from her being the chair of the committee is all.
She's not chair.
She's
Well,
not.
she represents him.
Well, technically, no, they would
That's
have to
true.
vote
Okay.
as a majority to represent.
Peter, what are your thoughts?
I joined with Councilmember Lucchese. I supported Alex when he first moved to town and wanted to get some of my peaches, and he introduced himself and told me about his background in carbon sequestration, which is extremely important. And so I supported his membership as a citizen on the Solid Waste Committee, chaired by Councilmember Lucchese, and it's too early to tell. He also is claiming that he's going to revive the Dunsmuir Garden Club. That's fantastic if he could do it. He also has joined the oversight group that I'm a part of for the Dunsmuir Community Garden and the Resource Center, 1 or 2 meetings, but it's extremely important. And I'm very disappointed we don't have more people worried about the fire safety of the city of Dunsmuir. So whether your volunteer fare helps, I don't know.
I don't either.
If Alex really wants to take on a fourth volunteer assignment on DPAC, I would encourage him to attend some of their meetings, see if there's a space for him, what his value added would be. But I'm not prepared to support his candidacy tonight.
Well, with that in mind, I guess I would recognize also that I've respected Alex and I know he has a passion for being part of the community. With that in mind, I'd like to ask if you would mind just kind of hanging out at a couple meetings and coming back and talking with us again about that. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, God, that's humiliating.
Hey,
Alex.
Linda, your mic is unmuted.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, great.
It's okay.
Alex. He asked you a question.
I heard it.
Okay.
I'm thinking. It's a 2-2 vote right now.
Well, I think the key is don't look, I'm sure this must be incredibly uncomfortable for you, and I'm sorry about that.
And again, mine is not a no.
Yeah, I think what we're saying is right now is we'd like to give you an opportunity to kind of take a deep breath because the number of committees you're on is a large number for somebody new. I know I'm on a bunch of them. So we're not trying to chastise you, but just saying, why don't you take a little bit of time, attend the meetings as you have, make your comments, and I'm sure Linda will be glad to have you, Brian will as well. But I think that with that in mind, it's just a matter of helping to move that along. It's just kind of wait and come back in a couple of meetings, a couple of months.
Just a couple of deep
None of us are saying no to you about the position. We're saying concerned about the position. And it's concerned that you have a lot of different irons in the fire and which ones do you want to pick to really work at.
We want you to go to a couple meetings and see if you really want to join the vote.
Fine.
Okay?
Agreed.
Okay. Thank you, Sue.
So I'll motion to table the application until after 2 DPAC meetings.
I'll second the motion.
Call it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we're all officially saying come back in a couple of months. It's not just saying go away, it's come back in a couple of months.
Go check out, make sure you know what you're getting into. Look at it that way.
I've already been checking it out, and I've been working with already.
Yeah. So it's not like we're saying anything's happened that's bad. It's just a little concern and, just move forward from there.
Yeah, you need to collect some more information about me, I understand.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's more about you just
You
kind of.
need to collect some more information about me.
Sure.
All right, thank you.
With that
All
in
right, so then
mind,
Finance Committee?
We have 2 applications for Finance Committee, right?
Yep, so just a quick brief thing on this. The current Finance Committee was composed of Len Foreman and Mike Delabana. Their terms have expired. Len Foreman is willing to reapply, so he is willing to go back on it. I didn't include his application in the packet since it's from prior. And then, regarding the second applicant, or the first, whichever one you want to do, Ahmet Tassi in the audience right now. The one point out here, just to note, is that he's unavailable Mondays. So we do have our normally scheduled meetings on Mondays, so we'd have to discuss changing the meeting time. Yep.
Okay, Ahmet, would you come forward, please, and introduce yourself and why you think you should be in the committee?
Hi, everyone. My name is Ahmet Tassi. I live on 40194 Forest Lane. I have an accounting, finance, and business analysis background. So I would like to contribute more to the community with my skills, and finance is one of them. Not especially government financing, but I think it will be fun to learn about that too. As he mentioned, unfortunately, I can't make Mondays. And I am fully aware it might be very hard to change the schedule, and could be one of the reasons why I might not be in the committee, and that's totally understandable. If you have any questions for me, I'll be very happy to answer.
Your application says unavailable Monday and Tuesday.
Tuesdays, actually, I can do it if I think there is a Zoom availability. If that is available, I can definitely do on Tuesdays. The Mondays, unfortunately, I can't do it till end of August. After that, if everything works out and wants to do it, you guys want to do it on Monday, I'll be very happy to do that as well.
In terms of the committees that we have open, obviously we have multiple openings. Why were you specifically interested in finance?
Finance is something that I enjoy, and I have a huge background with it. So that I studied accounting for 2 years and corporate finance for 4 years. And business analysis, we usually deal with the numbers. So I'm just good at it. Again, not specifically government financing, but again, I can learn. I can catch up quick.
Any other questions?
No, fine, thank you.
Do we want to go ahead and move Mr. Foreman, or you want to do the two together?
We could do two together, assuming we're on the same page on that. I do believe that Mr. Keisler has some concerns, and I think with the concerns, it doesn't mean it's a no-go, but at the same time, I think he needs to express his feelings about this. It has to do with the election.
You don't play well with others.
Say again?
You don't
Well,
play well with others.
No,
So-
I play
so again,
with
to avoid-
everybody. It
You ask
depends
me
who
this.
wants to play.
So
If
again,
people
it's a
don't want to play, I
question.
can't play.
If you
Oh,
want
I
to,
don't have any questions. I have no questions. You asked me one. We all know where I'm at, so where are we going?
Okay.
I'm happy to move adding Ahmed Tashi to the Finance Committee unless either of you, the scheduling is an issue. You can't turn the apple cart over to accommodate one citizen member. So if the scheduling is not a problem, one of my continued concerns is there's very few business owners that participate in Dunsmuir city government. No. Well, the mayor, yes. And I think the more the business community has voices, from the chamber to the finance committee to DPAC, I'm obviously in favor of that. I've spent a lot of time with Ahmed, and we have newer people moving to Dunsmuir. And so there are the old timers and there are the newer people that want to participate. And anybody that's not an old person that wants to participate, I encourage that.
Mondays are a factor, though. That's the only thing that works for me. It's the only committee that you guys have allowed me
And I
to be on.
understand that. Yeah.
So there you go.
Madam Chair.
I'm happy moving forward with Len. I think Len's done a very nice job. He's lovely to have on the committee with his perspective of working with school boards and everything like that. So I'm happy moving forward with Len. I think the big question we had at the committee level was if Len wanted to stay with us.
Right.
That was the big one. So I'm happy that he did reapply. I personally do not have problems moving the date. I don't speak for the committee though. And so we would have to talk about that. So my perspective is I would be happy moving forward with the appointment. I do, pending a finance committee discussion at the meeting to see if that's available for everyone. Again, I don't want to pit one person against another in terms of their scheduling. I understand that we're all busy, but we can ask the question of the committee as a whole without one of us making that decision on behalf of the full committee. I think that's the fairest way to do it without one of us, again, pushing to a different direction. I do agree with Councilmember Arthur. I think it would be nice to have an actual downtown business owner involved. Mr. Tossi has been making a lot of effort with the chamber, and so having that connection as well would be really nice. So yeah, I mean, my perspective is a motion to approve the appointment pending a finance committee discussion and motion on the schedule.
Well, why don't we just do it like we did the other, which is we approve Len Foreman and then come back after the finance committee. So appear at the finance committee and get a conversation, because the scheduling is critical in that.
Yeah.
So let's just go ahead and do it that way, and we can work it through that process. Is that okay with you?
Of course. As I said, I knew schedule could be a problem, and I'm aware of that.
So I'll-
Whatever works.
And real quick, you did mention August-ish was a time?
And the end of August, I can definitely do
End of August,
Mondays. If I know I'm in the committee, I can definitely arrange that.
Yeah.
It's not a problem.
And the term of this appointment is how long?
2 years.
2 years.
2 years.
So I'll motion to approve, appoint Len Foreman to the finance committee.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then I'll motion to table Ahmet Tossi's appointment to the, will we have a finance committee between now and the next city council meeting?
We'll have the Monday prior to the next one.
Okay, so I'll motion to table the appointment of Ahmet Tossi to the finance committee to the next city council.
Right,
Is
thank
there any
you.
way you could find a way to zoom in on that one?
On Mondays?
On Mondays, unfortunately, I do go to school and I do have class
about schools.
from 4 to 7. That is the only problem. Otherwise, I would definitely do it.
Well, we'll see what they can work out and get back to you on that.
Sounds good, yeah. Thank you so much.
Oh, was there a second to table?
I did.
Peter.
Thank you. Okay, last on the agenda here, and I'm just gonna get into a couple of things. I do want to try and come up with a volunteer fair. I do believe that we're in a situation where we have a lot of old timers that are dying off or just getting tired, and a lot of folks. So what I'm gonna be working with is coordinating with each of the groups around here that do have volunteer things that are going on. And there really are a lot more than most people can think about. I was sitting at a Rotary meeting last night, and Andrea Hare mentioned, oh, I could use volunteers for the community, or the
Farmers market.
what?
Farmers market?
Farmers market, thank you. So anyway, what I'm proposing is getting them all together as it stands right now on Sunday, March 22nd, from 1 to 5.
May 22nd?
May, I'm sorry.
Okay. It's okay.
It's been a long meeting. I did find out something about mailings, because it's one thing to put things in the utility bills, but when this came up, it actually came up as a suggestion by the fellow who does what's the new refreshment place down on Pine Street? Cobra Lilies.
Cobra Lily, Martin.
Yeah, he had mentioned at the chamber meeting, why don't you just send somebody out, just ask people to volunteer? So that's what the thing is. And the initial thought when I was talking with Wendy at the office was that this would probably cost an arm and a leg and it'll bankrupt the city. But in any case, it turns out I was surprised at how little we can reach through EDDM, every door direct mailing. People who've done campaigns know about that. There are 1,276 households, including both the city itself and the extended city. And through the EDDM process, it's 20 cents an item. So the total to mail this out would be $255.20.
Who's designing the mailer?
I'll work on that. I'll work
Oh,
on the
okay.
mailing. Yeah, I'm kind of,
I was gonna say, the other thing you can do to avoid the direct mailers is you can do door hangers.
yeah, I know.
You gotta walk though.
You gotta walk.
Yeah.
But
So,
yeah,
if this is too much for the council to spend, then I'm even willing to do it myself, or I
well,
could
if you,
look
if you
for
give
it.
me the information, I can mock up like a little postcard for you if you wanna send it via postcard.
Well, here's the other thing though, is when we were talking before about getting out the Zone Haven stuff, that was the idea, that we were gonna put the two together into this and get both of them taken care
So
of.
know your zone and volunteer.
Yes, exactly.
That's a good idea.
Okay.
And so is, I don't know if we need to have a motion or anything, would it be
You
okay?
published it.
Are
Say,
you
know your zone and
proposing,
volunteer.
are you proposing to use any city funds or,
He was thinking 250 if it could be done.
oh, so it's a budget request?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any thoughts?
No thoughts on that. I really want to stress no staff time,
Oh, no, I'll take
please.
care of the staff.
Yes.
So you'll give us 250 if we do it ourselves.
As long as you guys sign the checks.
How many volunteer areas is this directed to?
Everyone I can think of, I'm gonna be reaching out to all the players, Sam, the garden, everything.
And that's one of the things we're looking toward on the solid waste committee, green waste, composting, and I would love to get the high school involved. So
Yeah.
I hope there is a segment of this, whether we offer incentives or not, to get high school students involved in any of these opportunities.
That's a good point.
Community services, they all gotta have some
Community
community service hours
Are
to
you,
graduate.
are you set on the date?
Not really.
Why, you got something?
Yeah, I have an idea if you want to talk after this, because I think we should probably do this in a two-step approach. First being, we should probably do a call to organizations
Yeah.
and say that we're doing this and get them maybe in like a Zoom meeting or in a room to
Yeah.
say, hey, we're doing this volunteer fair. If you'd like to participate, please just come to this meeting where we'll do just a brief, this is what we're hoping to do. If you're interested, here's what we expect of you at the event. And then basically, and then do the advertisement after that. So at least the orgs are prepared and you know
I like
the
that
date.
idea, yeah.
And like, it's easy to get the orgs. You can just print some flyers with
Sure.
the same information. And if you want, I can mock something up for you.
That'd be great. Well, and one of the things to kind of tag along with that is that what I'm looking at here is also coming up with a database that people can volunteer to. And at least a website with names and addresses and a simple description of what the organization does. In fact, earlier today, I did a little video Zoom meeting with Linda and Brian, and it was an interview about DPAC and what does the DPAC do and what's the mission and what type of people. So it's kind of that, but how do we collect that information in such a way that somebody out there that just moved into town can look at it and say, I think this would be fun to do. So that's kind of what I'm moving for, and I like the idea of taking the time, so.
Yeah, because I think it'd be nice to get the organizations on board during that
Sure.
like initial call, just to see, again, what their needs are too, so
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
when you do that database, you can get the contacts.
Yeah.
And then you can say, oh, this is what they're interested in, here's what they're looking for.
Sure. And I do know that they have a folder for mail up at the high school. I was told about that, so I can work that, and I figure I can work some of the kids into doing that process for the community service, so.
Get
but
Ray Keller up and he'll coordinate
Yeah.
the kids that have to have it.
That's a beautiful idea, Juliana, I like that. So with that in mind, I don't see any further need for any further action on this.
And if you need $250, I'll give you $250.
I know, I got it too, I'm not worried about that. Okay, any future agenda items, and
Yes.
I have one that I'd
Yeah,
like to make
committee
sure.
about the building.
Yep.
Yeah, and the other thing is that I would like to at least have on the agenda some sort of notification that we're talking to the people about no fireworks. I mean, I know we just passed it in the,
Yeah,
It's countywide.
no, it's not.
it's not.
I thought I read in the paper it was countywide.
I mean, most agencies have adopted already.
Yeah.
So we just have to do the same one we did, and we passed it tonight, but we just have to let people know, right?
Yes.
So the dude that's coming in for hire, or this guy that's supposed to show up, when's he gonna show up?
Next Friday.
Next Friday. We'd like to have him introduce himself at the next meeting. That'd probably be a good idea, so everybody
Oh, yeah.
see his face and let us know, a little bit about him, what he's about, that's all.
I was starting to think it was like a Sasquatch, we got a sighting.
And,
I think that's it. You've got a lot going on, so I'm not, I have nothing pertinent.
you still got your wheelbarrow soapbox derby car? You still got your wheelbarrow soapbox derby car?
I'm racing her in the derby.
Okay.
So I motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Meeting adjourned.
All right. My back has been spazzing out real badly.
Good.
Mr. Bailey, thank you for coming, sir. You are turning into one of our true diehards.
Stop by one of these
We
days.
do